mask on in the car, but I started eating a candy bar, so I took it off. But I want to put it back on because it has sunflowers on it.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Great.
thank you. Are we ready? Are we ready? You ready, Speaker Pelosi? Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
And another warm welcome for Speaker Pelosi. My name is Esther Solar, and I'm president and founder of Futures Without Violence, and thank you so much for being here. Oh, thank you. And now I would like to introduce to you Verna Garcia from the Friendship House. She is the niece of Helen Wakazu, founder of Friendship House, and a wonderful friend of Speaker Pelosi, who we lost last year. Thank you for your work at Friendship House, and thank you for the land acknowledgement that you will now give us all. Verna.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. I'm just a little nervous, and we're coming up to the year for my aunt. I just want to acknowledge her. I know she's here in spirit. And so I'm speaking to you today from San Francisco Bay Area, also known as the Ohlone tribe. The Ohlone tribe were here. They were the first people, and they hunted here. They migrated. They were not migrated. They came here, and they did great things for the land, and for us to honor them here today, just acknowledging them and acknowledging them and thanking them, for us being here on their land is a great pleasure of mine today. I'm sorry. The land is where, like I said, they hunted and raised their families, and they were the original caretakers here. By acknowledging them again, it makes me proud of who I am as being Native myself. We are the women, Native-wise, we are the backbone of our families. We're the ones that raise our children, help with caretaking. So, I'm very proud of that. We are still here for us Native American. Colonization is not a past tense. We are still here fighting and surviving and thriving. And with saying that, a lot of our families were also on the land relocation, and that's kind of how I ended up here. And I know Helen went through the same thing. She came here to San Francisco, and she built what we have today, Friendship House. And I just want to thank all the women here as well. I mean, we're all, a part of raising and growing and doing things for our families and our society and the culture. So thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, Verna. And for the other colleagues from Friendship House, welcome. I am pleased to welcome you as we celebrate Women's History Month and the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act. I have the wonderful opportunity to be in D.C. last week as the White House celebrated its passage. It was so good to be back. Mm-hmm. We were there in 1994 helping to create the first Violence Against Women Act. And since the 1990s, there has been over a 60% reduction in domestic violence rates among adult women in the United States. And I'm thrilled to say the new Violence Against Women Act, and thank you, Speaker Pelosi, for your leadership on that, expands funding for culturally specific programs, creates a dedicated program for LGBTQ survivors, and gives tribes the power to prosecute non-Native people who rape and seriously assault American Indian and Alaska Native people for the first time. We also fought hard from the beginning to put programs in place that prevent violence and work with men and children and youth. We did this all because we worked together and because of courageous survivors and incredible leaders like my colleagues here today, around this table, and in this room. Leading this gathering is someone I am deeply honored to welcome, Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Thank you. You all know Speaker Pelosi has been a tireless champion for women and families throughout her illustrious career. As the first woman Speaker of the House, that's amazing. She has been instrumental in every recent major legislative achievement that advanced justice, fairness, dignity, safety, and health. And just this week, we celebrated the 12th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act, which provides coverage for millions of people. And something you might not know, it prohibits insurers from denying coverage to people with pre-existing conditions. I know you know that. But it also was used to include, as a pre-existing condition, victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. It also prohibits insurers from charging women higher premiums than men for the same coverage. And again, we are all so thankful to you for your leadership. We at Futures owe Speaker Pelosi a special debt of gratitude. It was her Swords to Plowshares vision 20 years ago that helped transform the Presidio when it was closed down as a military base. You understood the power of this place and the need to make ending violence against women and children a public issue on public land. Thank you. And next year, thanks to Speaker Pelosi, we will open the Courage Museum, designed by world-class designers who brought America the 9/11 Museum and Brian Stevenson's Legacy Museum. The Courage Museum will engage the public and the next generation of leaders, our young people, to muster the courage to help stop hate and bigotry and violence. Nancy Pelosi is one of my true heroes and someone I am fortunate to call a friend. Please welcome our Congresswoman and Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
Thank you all. Thank you all very much. Good morning. We have a lot to talk about, so we have to get on with it. My apologies. My day job kept me from getting here on time. It keeps interfering in some of my other opportunities to hear from all of you, which is the most important part of my day job. But here we have our president in Europe issuing a magnificent statement in terms of working together with other countries in terms of Ukraine. And by the way, there are issues of violence against women involved in what's going on with the Russians in terms of the evacuations there. Here we are this day, Ukraine under siege. The first African-American woman nominated to the Justice of the Supreme Court. Isn't that just remarkable? Aren't we so proud? And what a difference between demeanor and whatever. And we're proud of Dianne Feinstein and Alex Padilla, our two senators who are both on the Judiciary Committee, representing our values and showcasing how magnificent our nominee is for the Supreme Court. So just placing that in time, Esther Sola is one of my heroines. She has, we go way back when this was her idea, and then she ever-widening circle of people. Remember in the beginning, people from the immigrant community were hesitant to speak out about violence in the community. And it grew and grew until we came here with Nicole Kidman and Joe Torre to open up a number of years ago. But it was so universal a concept, so universal an idea. It hit home literally and figuratively in so many ways. She was a pioneer in how she galvanized, brought people together to make a difference. So I want to just talk about a few things. Esther has been so fabulous. But in this Violence Against Women that you talked about, who was the primary author of this in the 1990s? Joe Biden as chairman of the Judiciary Committee. This has been an issue you don't have to talk to him about. I'll say something we needed to do. You don't have to tell me. I wrote it. It's my priority, and it always got better, as you indicated. I want to reference what Verna said. Verna, thank you. Where's Verna now? Thank you, darling. Helen, I loved her. I visited her at Friendship House, where we mourned others who had gone on, and now we have 1 year anniversary since she has left us, but thank you. And when we talk about the Violence Against Women Act, you have to know this. When we were reauthorizing it, maybe 10, 12 years ago, here's what the other side of the aisle said. Now we have a bipartisan bill now, but here's what they said. We'll do violence against women. We are against that. We'll do that legislation as long as it does not include immigrant women, Native American women, or LGBTQ women. What? These are some of the most vulnerable people. I mean, even if you could ever even imagine excluding anybody, these are some of the most vulnerable women. And we had a fight. Finally, we had shall we say, a Queen of the Hill bill where whoever got the most votes, and then we did, and were able to reauthorize it. But the Native American piece of that was so important that the person who introduced Joe Biden and therefore President Obama to sign the bill was from the Native American community. And it did start us down that path, which has now been strengthened, that you cannot assault a woman on native land and then run off and be without consequence. That was so important. But let me just say another thing. Because you mentioned the Affordable Care Act, and yesterday was the anniversary, 12-year anniversary. When we put together that bill, one thing that was an unfulfilled promise that I had made to the Native American community was that we would have a Native American health, the Indian Health Improvement Act passed. But every time we try to bring it up, the other side would put in anti-choice things that just made it really hard. We didn't want it to be a problem for the women because we were expanding health care for the community. So when we did we needed every vote. It was very close. We needed every vote. And one of the ways we passed the bill was I said, you know what? I see an engine coming down the track, and we're jumping on there with the Indian Health Improvement Act, and it was in the bill, and it got us votes to pass the Affordable Care Act. So thank you again. So again, whether we're talking about violence against women, we're talking about healthcare, we're talking about the infrastructure of our country, when we're writing those bills, we can't do that without the involvement of our Native community because they know so well, as you referenced, the care of the land and the rest. So thank you for starting us off in such a principled way. So here we are, and we're going to hear from all of you, and that's why I came, believe it or not, to listen so far. I've listened to Esther. Now listen to you. And I thank everyone, Shona and Cassandra and Sandra's not here yet, but Naomi and Orchid and Joyce and Brian. Brian, welcome. We'll hear from you too. We'll let a guy in.
You've always liked the work.
Well, it is. This is so important that we hear from how boys are raised and how men view this in a different way. That's why Joe Torre, his father was, shall we say,
Abusive.
Of his mother, and he made it so much his mission to make sure and bring visibility to it in the sports world, which was really important to do. Mm-hmm. So again, we celebrate the Violence Against Women Act that Joe Biden, whether it was in the 90s, the renewal in 2000, 2005, 2013, and now he's so proud of this. That day when you were there, we were there in the morning when he signed the actual bill, but in the evening we had to do battle on the floor of the House, so I wasn't able to see you in the evening thing. I talked about the LGBTQ and immigrant women. But at the same time all this is going on, there are other issues that relate to violence, like AAPI violence that is so raging now, and you think, how on earth do people think that they can get away with that? And I'm very pleased that we passed in a bipartisan way, in a strongly bipartisan way, in the House and Senate, the AAPI anti-hate crimes legislation. Grace Meng in the House and Mazie Hirano in the Senate, making that possible. And that, again, what are these people thinking? What are they thinking? That, as you said, future without violence in any way, shape, or form, certainly at home, that's for sure. So in our rescue plan last year, we had $1 trillion in there, 800 for geared toward ending violence, but 800 million of it was for COVID funds to go to organizations that dealt with violence, domestic violence and violence against women, and then the other 200 million to help with other aspects of it, legal and the rest. So every step of the way, we are recognizing that this has to be recognized. You cannot solve a problem unless you recognize it. Recognize, funded sufficiently. So in any event, we're excited about the Violence Against Women. I'm excited about the Courage Museum. I have been to Brian Stevenson's museums. He has more than one. And that you have the same architect is quite remarkable, because there's nothing that drives it home than the visual. You'll see it at the Courage Museum. It's something so remarkable. So in any event, I'm really eager to hear what you all have to say and how we can exchange ideas. But I just want you to know how important the role was of our president in this violence against women, how important it is to him that it's strong, that it's funded, and that it is implemented in a way that brings us a future without violence. Thank you, Esther.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Speaker Pelosi. And it is now my pleasure to introduce to you Shona Pekula, who will speak to us. And we met Shona through the Justice and Diversity Center, a division of the American Bar Association. And I know your executive director, Yolanda Jackson, is in the house. Thank you for being here, Yolanda. And I also know, Shona, that you serve on the Domestic Violence Consortium, and Beverly Upton, I believe, is in the house. Thank you, Beverly.
It's a pretty tough act to follow, Nancy Pelosi, right? So I've got so many things racing through my mind. Like, one, it's an honor to even be here in front of everybody. And when I look around the room, I didn't want to cry, because I'm just, not all heroes wear capes, right? It's an honor to be here. I am a direct recipient of this funding through the Justice and Diversity Center, Antonia and Alex Mendoza, who's my lawyer, who's here. My story is a little bit different. It happened a while ago. I don't want to tell you about how I've seen blood come out of my face at the rate of my pulse. I don't want to tell you how many times I've been held hostage and hit with carbon fiber knuckle gloves, and how I lost a baby one time because he basically beat it out of me. But then the fight continued, and it continues in court, and I fight for my child. And I couldn't do it without the Justice and Diversity Center, and I couldn't do it without this funding. So I just say thank you so much for all the work that you guys do, because the domestic violence community is so underserved and we are so misrepresented. People say, why don't you just leave? It's not like that. You don't have the opportunity sometimes. And when you make the choice to leave, the abuse gets worse and the stalking gets worse. And the bills just don't support it. The law just doesn't recognize it. And so the work that everybody's doing around here, for me and for everybody else, is so important. And thank you so much again to Antonia, my absolute hero, my guardian angel, and trying to find help and services. What was I going to do in court? Like, how am I going to do this? I'm a single mother. I work. I don't have time for this. Like, even reliving it, 14 years later, it doesn't go away. The emotional abuse is still there. I relive it every time I have to talk about it. And Antonia and Alex have swooped in and they have saved my emotional sanity. They're saving my child from even having to go through this. And I can't tell you how important this work is, because it does start at home and it is a cycle. And if we don't break the cycle through the kids and through the courts, then it will continue. And so I just say thank you. And again, I look around and I want to say thank you, everybody, for the work that you do and the funding. And it needs to be bigger. If I can end, we need more. We need these services everywhere. I've left San Francisco and moved to Sacramento, and these services aren't there. And I struggle. And I struggle to try and find help up there for any type of resources. And San Francisco is lucky that we have a representative that focuses on these types of things, but we need this everywhere. We need to think bigger. And so thank you, all of you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shona. And I heard you're going to law school.
So because of my struggle, I'm also a huge advocate. I was in San Francisco for 22 years. I did a lot of advocacy work here as a case manager. And I don't take no for an answer. If I have to call 100 lawyers to find that one answer, what piece of paper do I fill out? Is it an FL 300? Is it an FL 20? What do I respond with? What am I quoting? What does it look like? I know one lawyer is going to respond to me. And because of that struggle, it shouldn't be this hard. And because of a comment that was made to me, it doesn't matter if he abused you yesterday. He still has rights to his child. And I was like, that is not fair. That is not right. And so because of that, I have fought for funding, and I've gained funding for me to go to law school. And so I'm studying for my LSAT. I'm going to work for the Justice and Diversity Center as a domestic violence
We
family
heard it
law
here.
attorney.
All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you.
No,
Yes.
thank you. We welcome you back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce my colleague to the left, Cassandra Poggi. We got to know you through La Casa de las Madres, and I believe Kathy Black is in the house. Cassandra.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cassandra Poggi. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and I first wanted to thank everyone here today for two things. One, when I started to speak out about my story in public, I realized that it's healing for me. So one, thank you for being a part of that journey. And then two, when I finally escaped the abusive relationship, the only people that I was comfortable speaking about my experience to was others who had similar experiences. So thank you for giving myself and Shona a platform to hopefully reach women and others who are currently surviving today. So I was in an abusive relationship for over 2 years. It started as most usually do, right? He's charming. He says all the right things at the right time. But he slowly started to introduce the behaviors of isolation, manipulation, intimidation. And at some point I found myself stuck in this relationship with someone who used that as well as violence to control me every day. The abuse was constant, 24 hours, night and day. I'd forget the amount of punches and slaps and shoves and headbutts. There was nights after physically and mentally abusing me, he would abuse me sexually. He would force himself on top of me and inside of me. And so those were the darkest days of my life. And I, at moments, thought the only time that I would get out of it is by death by his hand or by my own. So the night that I finally escaped, it was a truly sadistic beating, and I don't remember how many times he punched me in my head and my face and body. But for some reason, he stopped, and so I staggered up the stairs. I went to the bathroom. I stared at myself in the mirror, and I knew that if I did not leave in that moment, he was going to kill me. So I grabbed my stuff. I ran out the door, and as I was running down the street, not knowing where to go on Fulton Street, for some reason, La Casa de las Madres image popped into my head. And so a few months prior, a colleague of mine was presenting on domestic violence awareness in partnership with La Casa, and I was just passing through and saw their image, and for some reason, it popped into my head in that moment. So I hid into someone's corner of their dark, like in the garage, and I Googled them. I got their hotline, emergency hotline number, and I called them, and they gave me the address to their undisclosed emergency shelter. I stayed there that night. And that was probably the first time in over 2 years that I felt truly safe. So words can't describe to me what like everything that La Casa has done for me. But they also didn't stop there. They helped me the whole following year with my court case. They gave me legal advice. One of their advocates came with me, so to every single court date, so I wasn't alone as I faced my abuser. So thank you so much for all the work that everyone here does, because they're a direct recipient of VAWA. So fast forward today, I'm happy, healthy. I fortunately have a therapist that I see weekly that helps me process PTSD and all the triggers. But healing's a journey, and I know that COVID and shelter in place has triggered a lot of survivors, including myself. But I can only imagine still being in that relationship with him during shelter in place. The only time I had, I was able to not be at immediate physical harm, the other mental and emotional was still there, but was when I was at the office for 8 hours a day. So, I mean, my heart goes out to all the people surviving and who have been surviving through COVID. And we all know the statistics, I think everyone in this room better than I, of pre-COVID numbers and post-COVID numbers. So all of this is just going to be so helpful for everyone. So again, thank you. Abuse thrives in silence, so everyone here today is helping end that. I would like to end on a quote by our dear late Madeleine Albright, that there's a special place in hell for women that don't help women, and I don't think anyone in this room is going to have a problem with that. So, thank you, everyone.
And thank you so much, and thank you for mentioning Secretary Madeleine Albright. Her wonderful daughter, Katie Albright, runs Safe and Sound in San Francisco. Orchid, Asian Women's Shelter, an extraordinary program.
I was going to say good morning, good day, good midday. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to hear from so many, and I'm honored beyond words. I am here from Asian Women's Shelter, and in 1993 and 1994, Asian Women's Shelter, I think while I speak, I can do this. In 1993 and 1994, Asian Women's Shelter had the honor of being able to collect and then translate and submit survivor stories from limited English proficient immigrant survivors to help in the process of making that very first legislation have protections in it that really addressed all the barriers that are faced by all survivors of gender-based violence. And I came later, so I'm in my 20th year at Asian Women's Shelter. And I know that since 1988, since we opened, Asian Women's Shelter has been operating every hour of every day of every year. And about 90% of the people that we work with are limited English proficient, mostly from Asian and Arab immigrant communities, Spanish-speaking as well. And we work in that way to really address the reality. You know, you're at home, that San Francisco mirrors California in being about 40%, where 40% of residents speak a language other than English at home. And I think we all know that if in the most terrifying, devastating moments of our lives, we had to use our 6th grade French, our life would be unsavable. Unsavable. You know how bad your 6th grade French is. So people are in the very beginning of their journey of learning English and surviving so much oppression and violence. So I know in my bone marrow that culturally specific and culturally grounded programs are the essential bridge between so many individuals and communities and families and safety that they've never been able to access before, and systems that they've never been able to really access before, meaning just represent themselves, just say what happened and have somebody understand. So I also want to say that from operating a shelter, from having babies in the shelter, we've had newborn twins in the shelter, we've had babies that actually are born almost in the shelter, but we do get to the hospital, all the way through elders and grandparents. And then we have people that we support in housing programs where we provide rental subsidies. And this piece around affordable housing that's accessible to survivors, it is the golden ticket to a future where you're on a lease. You get to control your home. Everything from deciding what goes on the wall to what gets cooked and eaten to how the trash is handled, those are instances of violence and horror before, and when it's your own, it's a new life. So we have been so grateful to you, and I want to just say thank you for your unwavering leadership on behalf of the LGBTQ elders, the deaf Asian survivors, the many, many people who have come through our programs with funding from VAWA and with tireless support from advocates to be able to really save and change and transform lives and the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Orchid. Jessica Nolan.
Jessica.
Yes, Young Women's Leadership Center.
Hi, I'm really glad to be here today. Thank
Can
you.
I ask you to just get a little closer?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm really glad to be here today. Thank you so much for your leadership, Speaker Pelosi, for your leadership and mentorship, Esta. And I also wanted to thank you, Shona and Cassandra, for telling your stories. It is a gift that allows us to create change. Like I said, my name is Jessica. I am a survivor. And I'm also here representing the Young Women's Freedom Center. I'm the executive director, and I'm a co-founder of the Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition. And we are survivor-led organizations in San Francisco and in California. And what I really wanted to talk about today is how important the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, this year specifically, adding more, prioritizing LGBTQ folks and marginalized survivors. We are at Young Women's Freedom Center and Sister Warriors Freedom Coalition. We represent thousands of women, trans women, gender-expansive people that have been in prison, that have been in foster care, that have been on the streets, and nearly 80% of women in prison are survivors of physical and sexual abuse, domestic violence. And so we are thankful for this work and look forward to continuing to push the envelope so that we can ensure that all women and gender-expansive people have full access to support, and especially survivor-centered, community-based, restorative practices, and the culturally specific supports, which were so important, and I just wanted to lift up this year. And thank you for your work, and we look forward to continuing to partner with you.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Naomi Tucker, the executive director of Shalom Bayit and Shalom.
Thank you, Esta. And thank you so much for all your incredible work these nearly 40, 30,
A lot of years.
30, a lot of years to
A
get
lot of
since the
years.
first VAWA.
Yeah.
I have a special sisterhood with you as founders of our organizations. And Shalom Bayit serves the Jewish community here in the Bay Area, and also we are the only provider of domestic violence services in the Russian community on the West Coast. And at a unique crossroads of surveying both a faith community and a cultural community. And I just want to express my deep gratitude to you, Speaker Pelosi, for being such a fierce advocate for women's safety all of these years since your early days here in San Francisco. And I grew up here, so I'm familiar with your work for many, many years, and you are just a force in the universe, and we're so grateful for you. I wish that in 2022 we were beyond needing to advocate for women's basic right to live in safety and peace in our own homes, but we're not there. And because we're not there, we need the Violence Against Women Act, and we need our fearless leaders doing this work. And shockingly, we need to still keep saying that even though we are more than half the population, women and gender minorities need extra protection. During COVID, as we heard so articulately from you, thank you, domestic violence programs around the globe have seen a 25% spike in domestic violence, increased isolation, so much more trauma and violence and terror. Of course, a huge economic impact, and that's been really devastating, and it's just been much harder to get out. So even as COVID rates recede, you know, we are really seeing that it's going to take longer for survivors to be safe. The ripple effects are continuing for a long time, and for that, we are also especially grateful for the funding that VAWA is going to provide, because all of us domestic violence programs have ramped up services right now. Even as many other types of services are operating on a more limited scope, we have not stopped. In addition to all the highlights you've heard from my amazing colleagues here, I also want to lift up the culturally specific and faith-specific pieces of VAWA, and it's so unique for a piece of federal legislation and a federal office, the Office of Violence Against Women, to recognize the importance of faith and cultural communities in doing this work and the critical role that we play in stopping gender-based violence. A California public health study asked people to say where they would first go if they were in crisis, and 40% of Californians said they would first go to their faith community. And that is why we train clergy and congregations to respond to domestic and sexual violence, and it's why these provisions of VAWA are so important. By funding culturally specific services for faith communities, for queer and trans communities, for Black and Indigenous and Asian and Latinx and disabled and deaf communities, and all those folks that are so marginalized and on top of their trauma of surviving domestic violence, we are helping the places where it is unaddressed and underserved. And as a person working within the Jewish community, even sometimes, you know, the myths that it doesn't happen in our community can make that issue very under-addressed. So it means a lot to us to have the funding stream, to have the recognition, and to have the increased options for people who are vulnerable, to have this culturally aligned support that not only helps survivors in the moment, but also gets to pockets of community where we can do prevention in a way that other places can't touch, because we can get into the pockets of community where we need to do actual behavioral and knowledge change of how people think about violence against women. So I'm thrilled for this moment, and I'm so grateful for you both. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Joyce Dorado, who runs Hearts at UCSF. And I know I saw you at an event, but I also remember our wonderful time at the White House with Attorney General Eric Holder when we launched Changing Minds. Joyce Dorado, welcome.
Thank you so much, Esta, and it's such an honor to be able to contribute to this wonderful event today. I'm just going to talk a little bit about trauma and how it affects kids. When any of us as human beings experience a dangerous situation, we're all hardwired to go into fight, flight, or freeze. And that alarm system activates us into that survival mode that helps us to survive that situation. That's all well and good. And when kids grow up in chronically violent situations, such as with intimate partner violence of their caregivers, what can happen is that they develop an overactive alarm system that causes them to go into fight, flight, or freeze, even when they're not actually under threat, but when they're reminded of that threat by a loud noise or feeling in trouble or whatever have you. And that can interfere with healthy development, lead to behaviors that get them in trouble instead of getting them help, and can lead to mental health difficulties like anxiety and depression, which we've seen a real spike of during COVID. So one of the most important factors, as you know, to protect kids and make it possible for them to heal, to learn in school and develop healthy relationships in the face of stress is connecting with caring, stable, trustworthy adults who care about them no matter what. And schools are an important place for that, not only for learning, but also because educators and school staff can serve as those caring, stable adults that foster their wellness. And so for this reason, in 2008, I co-founded a program at UCSF called Healthy Environments in Response to Trauma in Schools, or HEARTS. And we promote school success by collaborating with schools to create more trauma-informed, safe, supportive, equitable, and healing learning and teaching environments that can foster resilience and wellness for everyone in the school community, kids and the adults that serve them. Enter the global pandemic. Not being able to go to school for more than a year and having to isolate from friends and loved ones has kept young people from being able to connect with those stable, trustworthy adults that prior to that, people like teachers, coaches, loved ones, and even mental health professionals that do their work in schools. And these folks had previously served as those daily and weekly support. So now more than ever, programs like HEARTS and the amazing supports that my colleagues here have talked about are so crucial. And that's why it's so fantastic that VAWA enables funding for health care and public health programs to work with early childhood more collaboratively to address the needs of parents and their kids. COVID's been difficult to say the least, but with reauthorized and reignited resources like those provided by VAWA, we can provide the supports to children and families that need it. I just want to say there's all this really difficult things that we hear about what's happened to people and the trauma that people experience, but it is absolutely possible to overcome and heal from trauma. And what's more, I've seen, and people in this room are testimony to this, that we, when given the opportunity to heal, we can even, those of us who've been impacted by trauma can come back on the other side stronger, wiser, more compassionate, and able to give back to the world in really important and unique ways. And so I want to honor the folks here who are doing that. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, Speaker Pelosi, Esta, for all that you've done to make VAWA and all of this work possible. You are our sheroes, truly. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joyce, for our children. Sandra Haggerty from Glide, welcome.
Thank you.
Speaker Pelosi, are you okay for?
I'm okay.
You're good. Okay. I just checking the time. That's all.
I'm trying to make it really quick. I like to talk, but so I'm Sandra Haggerty. I work at Glide, and I am the program manager for our 52-week Batteries Intervention program. I started off in a women's center, and I worked with survivors. Oh, you know what?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I started off in a women's center. Yeah. And I worked with survivors, and so I definitely understood what survivors were going through. I got asked about a year and a half later to go and work with the men who actually were the offenders. And I said, I don't want to work with them. Why would I want to work with them? I'm a female. I don't want to work with them. And then I realized, as a woman, I could probably have some impact on them. Absolutely, absolutely. So I went kicking and screaming. I love my job, but let me tell you why. I feel that they get a different perspective from me as a female. I also feel that it's so important that we hold these men accountable. In order to do that, though, what we do in our program is we take them back, actually, trauma. A lot of people don't realize, because I didn't realize it myself, that a lot of these young men have been traumatized. They have learned that it's okay to do what they do, and it's not okay. It's not. Society plays a part, the environment, family. We say it's okay. When these young men, when they're young men and they're fighting on the playground, we go, oh, okay, that's cute. Boys will be boys. When these same men grow up and they're 200 pounds, 6 feet, it's not cute anymore. And so what we do is we take them back, we explore where they got these ideas. We call it male privilege. And we examine this with them. And we take them on this 52-week journey. We teach them about the power and control wheel. Our main goal is to just have them be accountable, not make excuses, identify where their behaviors come from, learned behavior. We try to unlearn it, okay? And then we want to see some accountability and some empathy. In 52 weeks, we've had a pretty good success rate doing this. I believe that this funding is so important. We talk about the victims, and yes, I'm definitely there. I'm about keeping victims safe. That's why I do what I do. People go, why do you work with men? Well, I work with men because I want to help keep the women safe, and that's why I do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I so agree with you, Sandra. Violence is learned, and if it's learned, it can be unlearned. And we've got to hold on to that. And I am going to introduce Brian O'Connor, Coaching Boys into Men.
Right on. Hi.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm excited to be here. I really relish this opportunity to feature the important work I have the privilege to talk about in such a crucial context such as this, the reauthorization, during this Women's History Month. So that's fantastic. Thank you, Madam Speaker, my colleagues, and particularly those who worked with your brilliant staff to help bring us together today. As well, a little shout out to my small.
Thank you, staff.
As well, a little shout out to my small and mighty team, Jesse and Sean. I don't know where they're at in this room, but I just wanted to give them some props. I'm here particularly representing thousands of those caring and consistent adults, namely athletic coaches we work with, amidst the constellation of all of us that Dr. Dorado talked about, every young person needing. VAWA is critical, and in thinking about this latest, most important reauthorization, almost 30 years after it was first passed, I thought of a brief story. I was a pretty competitive athlete growing up and had some influential coaches. And so Coaching Boys into Men, where's my handy kit here? Coaching Boys into Men is a program I helped create almost 15 years ago now. It's a tool, as the name suggests, that strives to inspire everyday athletic coaches to facilitate weekly conversations with their male athletes. Before or after practice or during the warm-up in the locker room before a game, these weekly trainings, as they're called, build healthy relationship skills, and most directly teach boys that violence against women is wrong and never equals strength, both on and off the field. It was first started in San Francisco, and now it's all around the world. So on one of these first seasons of launching the program, we spoke to a whole host of young athletes, but one in particular always sticks out in my mind. He was a young high school football player, and I wanted to get his thoughts. He was a junior. And he said to me, I said, how's it going? He said, well, at first it was a little awkward with Coach, but then we really got into it. My teammates and I started to think more about our behavior and our attitudes. And no one talks to us about this stuff. we're just expected to know. I thought about the fact that we can't take anything for granted. Even almost 30 years after VAWA was first passed in our country's almost 250-year history, we cannot take the important work that all of us do in this room to advance the health, safety, and well-being of our community for granted. It takes resources, and VAWA increased rape prevention and education programs funding, which is often how local organizations bring coaching boys and men into their community, as well as we applaud doubling the dollars of prevention and youth programs in the reauthorization. Particularly, this includes funding for programs designed to engage men, those who have used violence, and the majority of those of us who haven't. But yet still, we all have a crucial role to play in ending and preventing violence against women and girls now and in the future before it even starts. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Brian. And I am cognizant of the time, and I just want to say thank you to all of my extraordinary colleagues in the room and around this panel for the work that you do every day. I'm honored to be here with you. And I want to say, Speaker Pelosi, it's such an honor to sit in this room with you. And we literally would not be here in this room without Speaker Pelosi. Just want to ask you, how can we work together and help you do the extraordinary work you do every day? And just thank you so much. And the floor is all yours.
Esther, thank you very much again for your tremendous leadership. I have a few things I want to say. I was 15 minutes late, so we have more time. Thank you. Thank you to Shona and Cassandra, for sharing your stories. You brought us to tears, and all of you have brought us further to our senses about how much more we need to do. Again, I want to just put this in a little historic perspective. Thank you for acknowledging the staff. Adriana is leaving us. This is one of her last events, and she's been so wonderful. I don't know if Dan Bernal is still with us, but Dan has been very much a part of these events. And other members of our staff. As you were speaking, I was thinking of when I first visited Seneca Falls and the home of Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Elizabeth Cady Stanton's father was a very progressive person. He bought her a home and put it in her name. Imagine, this was 175 years ago or something. But Elizabeth Cady Stanton had a big family, 5 kids, and she couldn't really travel, but about Susan B. Anthony could. So Susan B. Anthony would come to her house, cooking the food for the kids and telling what the things are that needed to be done for women. And Susan B. Anthony would hit the road, and she'd go out and promulgate it. But why I bring it up, and what you reminded me of here, is Susan B. Anthony's father bought this home, and it was like on a knoll. But below the knoll were all these shanties, and there were mostly immigrant families who lived there. And people worked in the mills in Seneca Falls. And she could hear domestic violence coming out of those homes because of economic uncertainty, because of whatever. You won't know. Many things go into mental illness, alcohol, all kinds of reasons why she was hearing this. And that's what inspired her to say we have to do more for women. So this domestic violence issue really was the start of what happened in Seneca Falls. Now, when we put together the Women's Caucus, it was before I was in Congress, but when the Women's Caucus was brought together, Democratic and Republican women working together, it was around the issue of domestic violence. So this has been a motivator, but again, so much more needs to be done. While you were talking, I was also thinking, when we passed this bill, it was an authorization. And I want to give credit to Nita Lowey, Rosa DeLauro, and Nancy Pelosi, the three people on the Appropriations Committee, they called us the Delosies, that were instrumental in getting the money for the bill in the 90s following the authorization. Why I say that is in the bill that the president signed last week that reauthorizes this, it was part of the Omnibus Appropriations Bill, which not only authorized the Violence Against Women Act, it funded. So it was all in one. This was a big, big step forward. And of course, Esther was, and so many of you were a part of that, but you can't write a bill unless you know what you're talking about. So all of the things...
That helps.
It really does, because you may have the best intentions in the world, but they're not really listening. And so understand how important all the things that you have brought forward are, whether it's the impact on children, your own personal experiences, the culturally appropriate approach to it, boys, how they are raised or how they are untaught some of these things, the increased awareness we have of the impact on LGBTQ community and the trans community now. Thank you so much for your leadership in that regard. So all of you, the ability to write a law to get the money, have to demonstrate it hits the mark, and it is of national significance. So you all should take credit for what is in that legislation. And let me say a word about Senator Feinstein. In the first bill, it was the crime bill that contained the Brady bill. It contained this. It contained many things. But the violence piece, whether it was guns or any violence against women, was a big piece of it was from Dianne Feinstein, who was on the Judiciary Committee, and she continues to be a force for this, the ending violence one way or another. But gun violence, we didn't talk about that today, but it has also been an important part. We had to make a compromise with the Republicans on this bill on guns in order to get the bill.
Boyfriend loophole. The boyfriend loophole.
The boyfriend loophole. Yeah. But again, we have more to do. But nonetheless, there are other aspects of gun violence that are addressed in this, but not the boyfriend loophole. But let us salute Dianne Feinstein. She can't be here because she's there listening to the testimony for the first woman. So really, I hope you all know your power, the power of your words, your experience, the generosity of spirit that you have in sharing it, your professional knowledge of what it means for children. And one other issue that the president is committed to that will have, I believe, an impact on all of this is a much stronger commitment to mental health issues in our country. So more funding, more recognition. Why would somebody do this? I mean, is it drugs? Is it alcohol? Is it the way they were brought up? What is it? But whatever it is, thank God you got away from it, both of you, and thank you for making all that possible. Let me just say about Esther, though. You have to understand that when we go way back, I've been in Congress nearly 35 years. She was doing this before that, and it was, again, an ever-widening circle of awareness and people having the ability to come in. As I said, and way back when, it was a big thing for the Asian immigrant communities to even admit.
Right.
Just as it was with Elizabeth Cady Stanton. Those were mostly all immigrants in those shanties.
Well, I had a chance to meet you, Speaker Pelosi, when I think I had a desk in the closet in the DA's office and a chair at San Francisco General Hospital. So it was many years ago. And Orchid, you and I haven't talked about this, but we were at the table in founding the Asian Women's Shelter as well. A number of our colleagues were really there at the very beginning and watched Becky Masaki really help create and was there for many, many years. And I have personal stories with almost everybody on this panel, so I won't go there. But I will say It's just absolutely an honor to be at this table with you, Speaker Pelosi, and with my colleagues around the table and in the room, and a number of our board members who are here as well. We've made progress.
Yeah.
We've named it because we've had courageous survivors speak out, and people who've committed their lives to making the world better for their families, for their communities, and for the world. And I think about, as we're sitting here, what's happening in Ukraine, as you started, Speaker Pelosi, and the vulnerability of so many people and so many women and children. We can stop all this, and we need to recommit to doing that. And that's what this is about. So thank you, everybody, for your work. Thank you, Speaker Pelosi. Thank you, President Biden. And let's pray for
But
peace.
let us
Thank you.
Shona and Cassandra for their generosity of spirit. Telling us their story.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cassandra. I think we said to the press that they could have a question if they wished. I hope we would stay on subject, but
Okay.
beyond that, any question?
A little louder.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about your reaction to the Supreme Court confirmation hearings and what you made in particular of the Republicans' push.
Well, if I just may, I'm happy to respond to that. But if there's a question of the subject at hand, and that is related to the subject at hand, but I think they anticipated so much and actually taught us so much that perhaps your questions were answered. Anyone have a question about what we're doing here today? Suffice to say, as you were speaking, I was thinking of something I heard at a service the other day where they said healing is the path to compassion. Mm-hmm. Your own healing makes you understand what others are going through and to try to make sure that it doesn't happen to them. So again, thank you for your generosity of spirit and sharing your stories and the sacrifices you all make to bring all this to the table. The question is, what do I think of the hearings for the judge? Well, first of all, isn't she remarkable? Her demeanor, her knowledge, her confidence, her appropriateness in every way. Thank you, Joe Biden, for having, all the candidates were great. That was what was so great. He had so many excellent African-American women to choose from. And I know that must have been a stiff competition. When I spoke to him about it, I said, whoever you choose, I know we will be very well. Not that he was asking me for my suggestion, but I just volunteered that. I was very proud of how she handled the questions. I wonder about some of the questions that were asked, especially yesterday, by some of the senators. What could they have been thinking, and what do they think other people think of those kinds of questions that they would ask? I thought they just gave her an opportunity to shine. They gave her an opportunity to shine, and really the response of women and people of color, our Black Caucus was we couldn't get a ticket from them. Here I'm the Speaker of the House. I couldn't even get, because they just ran on. And I had other, shall we say, LGBT, HBCU leadership on this or that we want, but the Black Caucus had real ownership of this. And this morning, I don't know if you saw Joyce Beatty, but she's the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. One superstar talking about another superstar. It was quite remarkable. I'd really rather not even pay too much attention to that, except wasn't it something? Here they're going on about a book in a school that she's on the board of a school. And what's his name from Texas? His kid's school has the same book. It's just so small. You know, it's so petty, and it's so beneath the dignity of the court, of the nominee, of a presidential appointment, and something so historic, and someone so capable and so talented, and so values-based in her presentation, and respectful even of their stupid questions. So in any event, that's what I think of it. We got this statement from the White House, which is the statement of NATO heads of state and government that President Biden participated in, and it is a very, very strong commitment to helping the people of Ukraine, humanitarian-wise, militarily, and economically. It's quite remarkable. It'll be all in the news, but it says that we condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine in the strongest possible terms. We call on Putin to immediately stop the war. I was in, and then I'll let you go. I was in Munich a couple of weeks ago for what is called the Munich Security Conference. The president of Ukraine came and spoke. We met with the mayor of Kyiv, and we had everybody. You know, of course, the Chancellor of Germany, the Prime Minister of UK, but presidents and prime ministers of all countries, and we're all so complimentary of President Biden. President Biden, who just brought people together in a collaborative way, not in a condescending way, but in a collaborative way. A complete difference from what went before, when the previous administration was saying, who cares about NATO, we don't believe in the mutual defense, Article 5 and the rest of that. Here they saw America was back, and not only back, respectfully back. Respectfully back. On St. Patrick's Day, I introduced the president a couple of different times. You know, he's Irish, and so he enjoys that day. But when I introduced him, I said, we did have another Irish-American president, Democrat, but would be President John F. Kennedy. And when I was a student, I was at his inauguration. Many of my colleagues were not born then, or maybe their parents were even born then, that's for sure with all of you. But anyway, it was a fabulous speech, and everybody in the world knows. You can know it. If I begin the sentence, you will finish it. To citizens of America, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Everybody knows it, but the very next sentence, I said to President Biden, the next sentence, President Kennedy said, for you, Joe Biden. He said to the countries of the world, ask not what America can do for you, but what we can do working together for the freedom of mankind. And that's exactly what Joe Biden was doing, working together with respect, not with lording over, here we are, back in the room, but working together. And people really appreciated that we shared our intelligence in an open way so the world could see that we knew what Putin was up to, and they appreciated that, even though some people were hoping, we all were hoping it wasn't true, but we knew that it was. But be very proud of our president, whether it's making the future better globally or in our country or in our homes. We have a lot to be grateful for. And we have a lot to be grateful to each and every one of you for what you do. And let's salute our Esta Sola.